Gold is almost the only game that humans have ever played. In a way, it's foundational to all of our institutions. It's a 5,000-year-old technology that's so old, we forgot what made it valuable. Similar to Bitcoin, actually. That's what Satoshi did. He pulled together things that already existed, but just put them together in a radically new package that we call Bitcoin. And I tend to agree in the medium term, and I think that's happening today. Bitcoin's an almost $1 trillion asset. It exists side by side with countless or hundreds of fiat currencies, let's say. However, in the long run, I think Bitcoin, and again, we're back to that, the difficulty in understanding it is because it is so far outside our worldview, right? The idea of gold being disrupted. Gold is almost the only game that humans have ever played. In a way, it's foundational to all of our institutions. It's a 5,000-year-old technology that's so old, we forgot what made it valuable. Everyone knows it's valuable. How many people can tell you the 5 properties of money and why gold was selected? The idea that that's being disrupted by this 13-year-old digital upstart is pretty wild. But I think that Bitcoin is an innovation as significant as the Gutenberg printing press, actually. And I think the implications of its emergence will be similarly disruptive to institutions in the world. This is late in the 15th century, I believe, when the printing press was invented. The 500 years prior to that, there had been roughly 10 million books printed. All of a sudden, this super cheap and efficient way of reproducing books is invented, the Gutenberg printing press, which was a composite of other inventions, by the way. It wasn't really a breakthrough in itself. It was one guy or guys put together 4 or 5 different other inventions and made this thing work. Similar to Bitcoin, actually. That's what Satoshi did. He pulled together things that already existed, but just put them together in a radically new package that we call Bitcoin. 10 years after the invention of the printing press, 10 million books were produced. So the amount of books produced in 10 years equaled the amount produced in the 500 years prior. What did this do? This led to the rapid proliferation and dissemination of literacy, numeracy, again, psychotechnologies, right? These modes of systemizing our cognition that actually increase our ability to cooperate absent or independent of institutions of the day, which the dominant institution of the day was the church. They owned a monopoly on knowledge effectively via the scriptoria, right? So to produce one book took a lot of labor. Books were a luxury item. But all of a sudden, due to this innovation called the printing press, the cost of book production plummeted. Books become much more widely dispersed. And the church at first didn't realize this existential threat. Once it did, it actually tried to clamp down on the printing press, which created an interesting dynamic that we actually started producing books on how to produce the printing press. So it saw that this is a good allegory, I think, that when the institution tries to clamp down on the disruptive technology, the subversive technology, let's say, it actually drives it to its highest and most useful form of subversion, actually. So the result of that was a lot more thinkers, a lot higher quality of thinking, variety of thinking, and in general, it created a market for heresy, right? This led to Martin Luther penning that, why do we need you? Individuals can now have this independent relationship with the Word of God because they've developed literacy and whatnot. They don't need to go through this middleman of the church. And the printing press effectively led to the dissolution of the church as the dominant institution in the world. So we had separation of church and state and all the benefits that created in the aftermath. I think encryption technology, and this is deriving a lot of this from the book, The Sovereign Individual, which I've recommended highly, is similar. That it actually disrupts functions of the government that we needed the government previously for. We can now provide with code, Bitcoin being an obvious one, right? We needed the physical enforcer for property historically. Now for money, the most important property, you don't need that enforcer anymore. So I think that Bitcoin its emergence will actually lead to the dissolution of the nation state as the dominant organizational model for human beings.